So Feargal, who would have thought Hostelworld, Feargal Mooney on stage with 50 cents at Phocuswright?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think what that represents is the increased interest in the hostel segment. Not just in the investor community as we've seen with our IPO this time last year, but now right across the board. Hostels are something where there's a lot of change. And as I said, we're seeing increased investment going in there. And that's coming not just from institutional investors, but also from people who are already in the travel business, the likes of Accor Hotels, who announced recently the launch of a hostel brand, Joe and Joe Hostels. And I think what you're seeing is that players who are in other segments of travel are beginning to sit up and take notice and say, you know what, millennial customers are looking for something different. They're looking for that social travel experience, and they're not looking for it in a kind of pre-planned, formal package structure. They're very spontaneous. They're very passionate about it, and they're finding that in the hostels because it's not just about a cheap bed anymore. It's the social experience, interactive experience of meeting other international travellers in the common areas of the hostels, and that's what it's all about.
So the one stat that jumped out at me was 8% growth next year.
Yeah, so Phocuswright published a study of the hostel market earlier on this year. We obviously worked with them on that as at Hostel International, and that's their projections of 8% growth, and that comes from their study where they surveyed hostel operators all over the world, but also travellers, leisure travellers, both hostel customers and non-hostel customers, and they're projecting growth of 8% over the next couple of years. And I think based in terms of what we're seeing in our business, that seems reasonable.
And I would have thought, I had the let's say the misconception and preconception that the market was saturated, but in fact what you showed on stage there on some of the slides is that there is huge potential for growth here in the US, all over the world in fact.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think what we're seeing is that even in developed markets like Europe and like Australia, which have always had a strong hosteling kind of heritage and tradition, we're seeing expansion of the product and supply there. A city like Paris, for example, where 4 or 5 years ago there was very limited hostel product, and in the last couple of years you've seen probably about 3,500-4,000 new hostel beds going into Paris, generator hostels, St. Christopher's and so on, and these are high quality offerings that come complete with bars, nightclubs, cafes, but more particularly the opportunity I think in the US market, and as I said, hostels are underrepresented in the US. The US and Canada actually combined account for only 10% of global hostel revenues, right? And that compares to about 28% in the hotel space, so underrepresented, and that's because only 3% of global hostel properties are in the US and Canada. So I think there's huge opportunity here. Some work to do, I think, in raising the awareness of what is the hostel product that we're seeing in other markets, and beginning to see investors coming in to explore the US opportunity.
So great year ahead next year for 2017. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael.